Morning, everybody who comes early to class. You're officially 6 minutes too early. Please find yourself a cup of coffee and be back by 9 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. You should be good and ready on a beautiful Saturday. No rain, no snow. Okay, there is sunshine. Morning, Mel. Are you here?
Good morning, Mr. Paula. I am. Thank you. You're
Got
not flying
yourself
solo.
coffee?
I'm with my cup of coffee already. Thank you, Mr. Paula.
Not Irish, right?
No, too strong for me.
Okay. No, I also had to make sure it's gewone South African coffee.
Gewone, die beste.
Yes, thank you. Well, everyone, we should have gone home and we looked at the jurisdiction of different courts. And were you able to find those in the chat group? Please type, what have you found? What is the jurisdiction of the magistrate court? What is the jurisdiction of the higher court? Type something. Oh, Tineke, so my client can go and sue somebody in the magistrate court for 190 rands. Yeah, okay. So if it's more, they must go to the regional court. All right, I see. Lorraine, you agree as well? Who's in agreement? Everybody else? Lutando says it's also good. Well, if Leon says it's good, then it's good. That's it. It settles the issue. That will be the jurisdiction of those courts. But then again, it's a bigger story, eh? But what happens when a person then goes to the magistrate court and sue for 250,000 rands? Asked and answered, the answer will be the court will grant an order, of course. Say, well, Mr. Sipo, you're entitled to your relief. But Mr. Sipo, you're only getting 200,000. If you want 250, you should have gone to the regional court. And the parties, of course, at some point, they will issue that as an point in limine. Point in limine means something they argue before they even argue with the real issues. Any other lawyer would have probably sent them an exception and say, hey, colleague, how can you're suing in the wrong court? And the other one will say, okay, my client agrees that when the matter is done, he will only take 200,000 rand. So let's get on with it. Pay the 200,000. All right, having looked at the jurisdiction of the courts, and I believe you also went and you looked at Israel, you look at South Africa, you look past the politics as well. You didn't pick sides. You didn't pick the Hamas side. You didn't pick the Israel side. You didn't pick the South African side. You just looked at the plain law. And that's also another reason why I got you to look at the case. It's very, you'd pick one side or the other. Politically, you'll pick one side or the other. With the religion, it's got a lot of concoction of things that go with it. But as a legal practitioner, you look beyond the issues and you deal with facts. So If you are Christian, you're going to receive Muslim clients. And when they arrive, they want to get married, there would be a particular marriage regime that is applicable to Muslim families. And you cannot say, oops, I'm Christian, I'm not doing it. And the same, you imagine a situation where a gay couple comes to you for consultation. What do we do? Do we get married now? Those are the things you need to look at. If you are Muslim as well, you will have Christian couples coming to you and wanting this and that, or somebody has done this and that, which is haram, and all of that. And if you are African, you also have your own beliefs on how you deal with lesbians and gay people. Those things will come flooding in emotions. So the first lesson you learn today is when you're a legal practitioner, you are neutral, you receive and respect everybody, irrespective of their religion, culture, and any other thing. It is constitutional in South Africa. Everybody has got equal, seriously with an equal sign, equal rights. Women, children, you treat everybody with dignity, you treat everybody with respect, because that's what we do. We do this because the law requires us to do this. So today, we also do this because of our own humanity. You realize that your profession will move you into, I'm doing it because the law says I must do it. But at the later stage, you'll also learn that you are doing it because you are human after all. We have done last week a study around the concepts, and I'm scrolling, and I know I was scrolling a bit faster. So you need to go to study unit 1. Study unit 1, an introduction. We said in this introduction, you need to learn your fundamental legal concepts. You won't be able to learn all of them in one study unit. As you're going to go through the qualification, you will be able to learn and grasp different concepts. But one other thing about you doing the course, you need a record of what you are studying. And I remember when I became a candidate attorney, my principal said, go to the shop and buy an A5 notebook. You could have seen how unimpressed I was. I mean, I expected a fancy diary and all of that. At the later stage, I got to grow and realize that a diary will not solve my problems because many are the issues of the day when you are in the legal field. A diary is way too small to write those things. So sheepishly, I went and bought me a notebook. So same thing, perhaps find a 72-page exercise book or even a big A4 thin notebook, not the big one. This is the thinner one, the faint one. Find a notebook and put each notebook for each module so that when you come to class, you pull out a notebook and you're able to write a date at the top. You are doing this first to write the notes in the class, but you're also secondly doing this to start your journey as a legal practitioner. Legal practitioners keep note, and you'll say, okay, Mr. Pala can do this on my iPhone. I agree, 100%. I remember when my PA came and she had a phone and I said, no, star, you and I will never work if you don't have an iPhone. So we got going finding an iPhone so that we can share notes. But even with iPhones, you still need paper notes. So please find a notebook, write notes. Start with the class. But if this module now in this semester you're going to do 4, you probably need 4 notebooks. But now that you are a practitioner in law, you probably need a 5th notebook for your own activities. If you never go to record them, start recording the things you do every day, starting with the date at the top, and you continue recording things. It will assist you in your career. Well, now that we've done housekeeping, first thing, you learn the concepts. And I've said the concepts are not going to be studied and understood overnight. Therefore, if you have a notebook, you will be able to write down a concept in your class notebook on a module, maybe on module 1. But because you've got a personal notebook as well, the one I said was the 5th one, a concept which you believe would assist you when you practice at the law firm, you would write that concept in the other personal notebook. For example, we have just now talked about the jurisdiction of the court. This is important. So you'll go now, your first thing you probably write, if you don't know about this, you would have now gone and wrote that I need to now write the jurisdiction of the courts. And I must also write that if I want to find out these things, I must go to a website called justice.gov.za. They always give the jurisdiction of the courts. But most importantly, I must also inquire with the courts. If I go there, I meet the clerks, they will assist me, because these things get updated from time to time so that you can see if there's the monetary jurisdiction increased, you'll be able to know, and you can assist those who come into the firm, because the role of a paralegal, you will see now, we're going to discuss it, it's more of an assistance role. And one of the people you will work with, it's candidate attorneys, junior attorneys. Those people, when they arrive, especially candidate attorneys, when they arrive, they are very raw. They're from LLB. And of course, yes, you've guessed right. They walk around and look as if they are proper attorneys. Look at them. The reality is, at a later stage, after 2-3 years, you realize that being a good practitioner is just being down to earth and help people. And those who just got admitted as well, shoo, they walk inside the office and they look all big. Yes, it's a brand new profession in their bag, but they need you to assist them to settle down. And some of these basic things, they tend to overlook. And as a paralegal, you need to assist the firm to be anchored in the basic things. All right. Now, in the same page we are looking at, we say, what is the actual definition of paralegals in South Africa? None. The South African scope does not define a paralegal as such, and it's not something that they have taken to heart and worked on fully defining. Are we going to crusade and campaign that we should have it as a formal structure in the South African space? I think me and Madeline and everybody else involved in these qualifications will start with the Law Society and then move over to the Legal Practice Council and see if we can lobby for something. But those kind of lobbies take time. But a legal practitioner is understood to be a person who works as a admitted attorney, but in the Legal Practice Act, the law firm is expected to also give the counsel the names and details and functions of any other person who is found to be and about the law firm. And the paralegals are also those people who get into those letters, and when we send to the Legal Practice Council and say, hey, we also have got Tabo here, he is a paralegal in our firm. Why? Because when a person comes into the firm, they do not see a paralegal. They see people in a firm. And when you make a decision or do anything which is material, for example, you promise a discount and you tell them we will win the case at all costs, and later stage, you guys lose the case. And after losing the case, you send a 500,000 rands bill to the client. The client says, no way. You said you will win. You said you'll win at all costs. And he goes and complains with the Legal Practice Council. And your principal, from now on, will call the attorneys who you work for your principal. So your principal goes on and say, but I didn't make the undertaking. The paralegal has made the undertaking. I am sorry, it was not my decision. Sorry. In law, the actions of an agent are deemed to be those of a principal. Therefore, when you act in a law firm, when a person see you, when you type a letter and you send it, you think you sent the letter as a paralegal, right? The reality is you sent the letter as the law firm. And whoever reads it, they read it from that context. So probably you need to understand the weight on your shoulders. And when we do ethics module, I'm going to show you the code of conduct of law firms and the things the law firms can say, or the lawyers can say, or they can't say, the legal practitioners can say, and they can't say. You say, oops, I'm not a legal practitioner in that space. The reality is, if you work with a legal practitioner, if it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. It walks like a duck. What is it? That's a duck. We only explain the difference at the later stage, but when a client looks at you, they see the law firm and all it represents. So your duty number one is written there. What defines a paralegal role then in our country? Number one, to access justice. When a person comes to a law firm, some paralegals have got their own businesses. They run as paralegals. But when a person arrives there, they are not there for paralegals or for lawyers. They are there to access justice. They say, I'm getting divorced. We will always use the divorce cases because they're easy to explain and they help you to see the bigger world in the legal space. I'm getting divorced. I need somebody to assist me to draft a settlement agreement with my ex-husband on how we are going to share the custody of the children. They don't care whether you are an attorney or not. That's not the point. The point is they have a problem and they want somebody to solve the problem. As a paralegal, you take pen and paper and say, yes, let's write the settlement agreement. That's it. The settlement agreement is being written. And if that agreement ends up being signed by the parties, that agreement is binding between the parties. You cannot at a later stage then say, oops, I'm just a paralegal. I'm not a lawyer. I drafted that agreement trying my luck. That agreement will stand. And when you come up against attorneys in court, they will enforce it using law of contract. So make sure if you are running your own private paralegal space, could you please find a lawyer you can work with? I know they won't officially associate with you, but find a lawyer you can always talk to, a lawyer you could always bounce ideas with, or even a lawyer who can settle your documents, especially if it's serious documents like wills, documents like settlement agreements, business contracts. Do them in your paralegal space, but send them to a lawyer to look at them. You can negotiate a fee with that lawyer so that you cross the, let me ask someone here, they cross the what? Maria, what do they cross? Do they cross the T's or do they cross the I's and dot the T's? Whatever they do, you cross the T's and dot the I's, I think, Maria. Just make sure that you do whatever that thing is. Just make sure. And make sure that the contracts are solid. Well, the next thing you do, you see, it doesn't matter whether you're in a law firm or not, you help a member of the public to access justice. So you probably are feeling this in a sober way that, phew, this is serious. It is. Next, you assist legal practitioners to carry out their duties. You see, you cannot do, I tell you what I don't do. I don't run a legal practice without Standiwe, without Kotatso, without Mr. Gwinda, without Lee. All those people around me are legal assistants. I've not even told you about those of you, I don't know if any of you came to a full-time class. You probably saw the attorney who is my associate who came and attended one of the sessions, Mr. Keith. But I'm not even telling you about those. Those are attorneys. Those work in their professional space as attorneys. But the people I just mentioned, they're legal assistants and paralegals who work with me. And while some of them are candidate attorneys like Mr. Winder, the reality is they are not your fully fledged attorney, as I would, for example, look at Mr. Keith. He is an attorney. For me to be assisted to do what I do, I need those who are not fully practicing as attorney. This will make sense to you one day. We were drafting a responding affidavit yesterday, and when we were drafting this affidavit, we said with Star, perhaps we need to draft one in class while all of you are looking and watching us doing it, because there is the synergy that people who draft share. And that's the thing. You're going to have to work with attorneys and share the synergy. At some point, when somebody looks at the two of you drafting, they will not tell who is who. When you take a document, for example, and you drop it off at Road Accident Fund, you don't see who is a paralegal and who is a candidate attorney. You're just all the same. You don't even see who's the attorney, because attorneys also bring those things there. When you go to court to file documents, same. When you're going to the children's advocate to try and get an endorsement, you can go and speak as if you were the attorney in the first place. Argue out that no, this clause is here, we have written the clause here, this is this, this is this. You can learn those basic things and present them to a person at the desk where you're going to submit the settlement agreement, because the person you'll submit the settlement agreement with is the clerk of the children's advocate. But what I've learned, if you are from Pretoria, they said, Annie there, when I was a candidate attorney, she taught me how to write a settlement agreement, because I came and I wrote it and it's wrong, and I came back again. Then I said, but Danny, you work with these things every day. How do you do this thing? And she took pen and paper and showed me the relevant sections which I must always include. And she tells me, even if you write it wrong, but if these sections are there, it will always pass anytime. I've never submitted a settlement agreement from that day and it failed with the children's advocate. Who taught me how to do it? My principal attorney? No, the secretary or the clerk. Candidate attorneys, when they arrive, new attorneys, when they arrive, the people who must teach them to write these documents proper is you. Do you think we attorneys have got time to sit down with candidates and the Mr. Gwindas and we show them how to? No, why would I? You must go talk to Star. They support in the promotion of justice. So justice is that concept that says it must be fair, number one. Number two, it must be seen to be fair. And somebody must promote this idea that justice is fair, justice is seen to be fair. When you have enrolled for LLB at the university, you were taught a module on the fundamentals of law. If you, one of those modules should have been around justice. If you are a UNISA student, you probably have done a module called SJD 1501. I taught that module for years at UNISA. So in that module, we teach you the principles of justice and why justice must be fair and must be seen to be fair. And you see that law is not about the written law, but law is about assisting the members of society to access justice. What makes good lawyers is not knowing the law, it's not important. What makes good lawyers is finding the law. That's very important. If you probably would see some of the cases I do, and if you Google them, you'd at times see us do some difficult cases, and you say, but Mr. Pal, how can you do a case for that guy? And you hear that we've actually won. You say, but yeah, how? The thing is, you don't look for emotion, you don't look for bias or whatever. You go out and look for justice. You say, I'm looking at this person. Is what is happening to this person fair or not? If what is happening to this person infringes their constitutional right, you find them in chapter 2 of the Constitution. What can be done to defend this person's constitutional rights? For example, a right to fair trial. If you are watching the Senzo Meyiwa case, I've watched in the Senzo Meyiwa case, there's a debate on whether the confession by one of the accused must be admitted or not, and the issue turns on an interpreter was used, and when you interpret, do you then include the certificate of interpretation or whatever they're discussing there? But it turns on that situation where an interpreter is used. Will the interpreter interpret directly, indirectly? Whatever he has interpreted, did it influence how the person confessed or what the person confessed? Do you need the interpreter to also depose an affidavit? Do you need that interpreter to take oath? Those are the kind of things that are being discussed and debated there. If you look at on YouTube, you should be able to find it. Let me see if I cannot look and see if I can find something like that. Then I can tell you where to find it if you're interested to look at it. It is the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and the issue is on, so you can, if you're on YouTube, you can write Senzo Meyiwa trial. Mugome Zulu is dealing with Baloyi and the state. So if you search something like that, you will be able to see an advocate, Mugome Zulu, there discussing the rights of a person, but he's discussing the issue around confessions. So let me write it in the chat what the thing is written on YouTube. Hey, I don't make up headings in YouTube, so if they sound very, people in my office, they say if they sound very violent, not me. It's dealing with this person who wrote this and the state, something like that. So if you check this, you'll be able to see a case on the rights to fair trial. And one of the issues on the rights to fair trial that's been discussed there is whether a confession should be admissible. Okay. What is that advocate on about? It's about justice. Is this guy the accused in the Senzo Meyiwa case is representing? Yes, he's the accused. For all we know, he could be one of the people who killed Senzo Meyiwa. But at this stage, his right to fair trial cannot be ignored. And somebody has to deal with that right to fair trial. So you say, okay, fine, Mr. Pala, I hear you. So I must have a good heart to help people's rights. Maybe, but I'm asking you for something bigger than that. Because I'm going to come to you if you are working with me and say, I have a Lee in my office who does that. I say, Lee, can you search for me rights to fair trial? And Lee would send an email to the Legal Practice Council and ask on the right to fair trial. And we will also go to LexisNexis, we'll also go to Judas Stats. Well, I've got access to a UP library. I'm a student for life. So I would then access my UP library and search there. If you've got any other university library, you could do that. Or if your friends or colleagues have, you can ask them to search for you. We collect all this information. Lee will read it first. She will highlight everything that is relevant. Did I tell you last time what kind of highlighter she would use? She would use a yellow highlighter. If you've got any other color, throw it away. Yellow. Why? After you highlight it in yellow, you put it on the photocopy machine, you will see what the text which you've actually highlighted. Any other highlighter may affect the text. Yellow ones are good ones. Okay, so she'll highlight in yellow, bring it to the table and say, Mr. Pala, I found this thing. Then I'll first say, Lee, coffee mug. And after you make coffee and bring that thing and explain. Then she'll sit here with a coffee and we sit and we look at the things she has highlighted. If it's good, it's good. If it's not good, we go digging some more. So what does Lee do? Is she an attorney? No, she's a paralegal. That's you. You help. Can you see? I was talking about to you about the promotion of justice. But you see what Lee is doing is supporting it. She supports the promotion of justice. For me to be able to be assisted to support this promotion of justice, I'll need information. I'll need case law on this. And I'll need to understand what is an argument that I can make to assist this person and the reason behind it. Well, now that I've taken you through how my office works and how you would work, you probably are taking notes that, okay, so when I'm going to do paralegal, I might assist people just in my own right and help them draft documents. And some of the documents I draft, they may ultimately become documents of dispute. But secondly, I need to assist legal practitioners that come in. You see, I told you about assisting legal practitioners who are candidates, legal practitioners who are legal support staff. But I've also, when I was talking promotion of justice, shown you how Lee actually assisted an attorney, me, to find case law. And that's what you will do. Those are the three roles you will mainly play. Of course, other things. You say, what other things, Mr. Pala, if you are very curious? Well, I always say to people who come into my office, Jonita, I say, at a law firm, you are everything. You are the mother, the father, the everything of everybody who comes in. At some stage, somebody in the office must be the social worker of the office. People will cry. People will need to be phoned and comforted. And I'll get somebody to do it. Maybe, Jonita, you work with me, I'll call you to do it. So if you are one of those people who's nice and kind and comforting, perhaps the lawyers will depend on you to be nice, kind, and comforting to clients. So there are those roles that you will find that attorneys, when they don't do it, they ask you to do it. To drop off a client at a bus stop or at the train station, they'll ask you to do it. So those are paralegals. In general, and what you would have highlighted in this discussion is that paralegals provide supporting work in the community. And you do this based on different sectors. I've listed them for you there. The community-based sector, that is the NGOs. You can work for the NGOs, you can work for churches, you can work for civil organizations, you can work for government as well. You can be employed in government to assist people to complete forms and do what. And in government, there's a debate around whether some of these activities that people use, can't we get paralegals to assist? If you want to hear what I'm talking about, take a trip and go to the maintenance court one day. That place is so full. The queues and the issues that make people go there are the issues that they can actually fix. In most instances, when everybody's there, jostling around for space and time, somebody to talk to, You get us walk in. If it's Pretoria, you'd walk in and say, hey, Mr. Toma, just Mr. Pala, I've done the settlement agreement. Can we go and get it confirmed? You see us pass right through your queues and everything. We go into the chambers of the magistrate, 5-10 minutes. We come back with some sort of paper stamped, signed, and delivered, and we go home. And you say, phew, if we can fix our problem like that. Truth, it's not cheap to do something like that. Because it's not about us stamping and doing, it's us sending emails at the office first. It's us meeting the parties at the office to deal with the dispute. So what everybody is doing at those queues, and they are full outside Court F, I think, trying to do, we've already done in the under an air-conditioned office sipping coffee. And for you to do that, there's legal fees involved. It's not everybody that affords it. But what if there were paralegals who can assist people in the community to do this without involving expensive attorneys? The community will be better off, and some of these things will be dealt with. And if you look at Court F, the issues mainly that are being dealt with is issues of maintenance, not really of the adults, is of the children. It tells you that one child did not have school shoes, even school fees, because the mother or the father are not reaching an agreement to resolve this thing. It's something they could do at a roundtable discussion, but there must be a facilitator. If there's no facilitator of this discussion, it would have to go to the magistrate courts. And when you arrive at those courts, the clerks don't have time. In, out, and they write whatever they can write, and you all go home. At the end of the day, you don't get justice the way it should be. And people like you sitting in the class are able to assist these people. And if you need help, you can simply even come to before class and say, hey, Mr. Pala, how do I solve this problem? I'll quickly, in a 5 minutes free consultation, help you. And you can go back and help your client or help a member of the community. So that is why paralegals are very important in our community. Government perhaps needs to bring paralegals more fully into some spaces and assist people like Mr. Toma and everybody, because the work there is overwhelming. It's just too much. Public sector, the municipalities and all of those that also use paralegals. Private sector, there's businesses that deal with family issues, there's businesses that deal with corporate issues, there's businesses that deal with different issues. For example, call centers. If let's move away from family law, because I got you soft-hearted now thinking family law. Let's move you away. Get out of there. Let's go somewhere hard and somewhere not so nice. Corporate law. If you're in corporate law, you're dealing now with debt collection, for example. In debt collection spaces, you don't really need a lawyer, do you? In debt collection spaces, you can handle debt collections, type the letters, and do whatever. There's also the debt collectors associations. So these are based on the National Credit Act. They don't need attorneys to do. They only need attorneys at the end, the confirmation of these agreements. But in between, even if there's no need for an attorney, a person working out these agreements and writing these letters should be a person with a very good understanding of the law, and at least how the law should be applied, in lieu of the fact that you need to apply rules of justice. What are rules of justice? Whatever you do must be fair, and whatever you do must be seen to be fair. Case in point, they send a letter of demand to a client. They insist that the client must pay. They harass the client with phone calls every day. The client went, they told her that they will repossess the car. The client was so hysterical. She does not know what to do because the car belongs to a deceased mother, and she's been trying so hard to get to settle the car, but the bank just has none of it. They're harassing her every day. She ended up with a mental breakdown. She went to the hospital and back. Long story short, she brings the matter to our office. First thing I do, contact the bank and say to the bank, can I speak to somebody? And then they give me a runaround. Well, I say, you guess to star and say, let's write the letter. But this letter, talk to Lee. Search everyone in Standard Bank, including the CEO. I don't care. Send this letter to every senior person, legal, whatever, because we try to talk to people who don't listen. Say to them, in 7 days, we sue for damages if they do not respond to this letter. Huh? What do you know? Our email address was now flooded with emails from pillar to post. No, here's the legal department. No, here's the attorney that's helping. Okay. Then the next discussion was, have you tried helping this client in terms of your own banking code? Because Section 8 requires that you need to help a client and give them an offer to settle the matter based on their affordability before you can even harass the client. It was not done, Mr. Pala. We'll see what we can do for your client. Okay, fine. This kind of discussion and everything didn't come free for the client. But see, you don't need a lawyer to do that. A paralegal will just listen to me now, and they are facing that kind of situation where their client is being harassed from pillar to post by the bank and nobody's helping. We'll go and do this. Please don't try this at home. The hazards are real. But this is what happened. You can get recourse if you knew what you were talking about. And the private sector debt collection could do with you knowing how to handle these matters and handle them right. You need to keep the above concepts in mind. In the next 15 minutes, I'll take you through the rest of the modules. In the chat box, or tell me if you're still fine. If you've got any questions, you can raise a thumbs up. If you're good, we can proceed. Otherwise, I should call the hospital. We'll take you to ICU. So you're still fine. Okay, then let's get on with it. Thank you, Janita. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Tinek. So let's move right along. Here we are. So now that your heart is into this and I got you convinced why you are so important and why you should be paid the big bucks. Now, you need the tools of the trade. For you to be paid lots of money, you cannot be paid lots of money if you're not adding value. For you to add value, you must show that you are different. You must show that when you walk into the law firm and you start talking, you must talk with understanding. And one of the biggest understandings that you can bring in any legal space is the understanding of the law. To understand the law, you need to understand the history of the laws, this background information, how the law works, because the law works with a system called precedence. Precedence, you can tell that pre is before, and then somebody said dance is what? Hey, dance is a dance, but precedence, that's all that there is. It is what has happened in the past. What has happened in the past in law has got the ability to affect what happens in the future. That is a principle in law called precedence. So let's look at the past. So in the past, you can imagine every person owned every person falling under them if that person was male. You remember the story? I don't know if you went to school when pigs could fly. When pigs could fly, one of the books you learned then at school was Romeo and Juliet. You saw that they couldn't marry because they're from the different worlds, and the father of this one could not allow it. The father of this one could not allow it. Then they killed themselves. Please don't do it. It's only in the movies. But why would one person determine if the people get married or not get married to an extent of them killing themselves? Well, he was a paterfamilias. Paterfamilias is the head of the family. He holds power and he decides who becomes into the family and who doesn't become into the family. And it happens even today to some extent. That principle holds even today to some extent. Do you know then that if you belong to a royal family, they tend to dictate who you should marry and who you shouldn't marry? Some royal families do it directly, some royal families do it indirectly. But who you marry is very important because they say that your child should be of pure royal blood. It's easy to find out my story. Look at the case between the Zulu royals. It's before the Pretoria High Court now. And the court has actually declared that the current Zulu king is the government did not follow procedure in appointing him. But the issues that are raised there, if you were to read that court case, and I won't find it for you, you have to go digging for yourself right now. The people doing who argue there, it's the sister and the brother, Mrs. Zulu's sister and Mrs. Zulu. So find out what is the story there. But if you can see that in the Zulu monarch, it also goes with other families. It also, in your family, it's also religion. If you belong to a particular religion, people start to directly or indirectly influence who you should marry in terms of religion or not in terms of religion. Or sometimes is cultural in terms of whether you marry a Venda or whether you marry a Zulu. And you say, marry a Venda, Lorraine. Yeah, but not a vendor who is owning a vending machine. A vendor is in a person from vendor, something like that. So yeah, it becomes an issue. It becomes the thing is after having traveled South Africa, and I'm happy to announce I've been to every corner and area of your South Africa. You find that people in certain areas behaves differently. If you go to um the former Gazankulu, the people there babalabula Changani. Loko ufika Gazankulu ngabalabula Changani, your issues will not be dealt with very well. You see, I'm not Zonga, but I can speak the language perfectly. And you move over to Venda and ukwambiwa Chivenda pala petu nasamba Chivenda zwavhuḓi ngazuluki. So you see, I'm just half Venda. My mother is Venda. And if you come to Limpopo, ora la mabili a rejo ba bolelang Sebeleki. And you see, you go to the Eastern Cape, to this Xhosa. These things influence how you cook Sunday course, isn't it? It also in Western Cape, it affects who you like cook course, ne? It's quite a lot of things. The cooking, the braai, and the everything is so cultural that when you move from Poiki course to Derere, it becomes a different discussion. And how you marry into these cultures, you have to give a whole lot away of your own culture and accept other people's culture. And after some time, you just realize you are just a South African. And all of these cultures are your cultures. And that's why I took it upon myself to learn everybody's language for real and speak it with an accent. So the thing is, and we are trying to bring to you is the background already of South Africa as a country tells you that the head of a family plays a big role, be it in an Afrikaans community. You know, when you walk into Afrikaans community, they say, Pa. Pa influences a whole lot of things in the community. It's actually the center of an Afrikaans household. And whether we like it today or not, and Opa work influences the culture and how you go camping, how you go braaiing, and all of these. And mama did cook sisters and all of that influences of these whole things. It's food, right? It's not food cook sister. It's culture. It's the whole thing. So you find that paterfamilias has taken root into our families. But when you look further, we'll look at democracy and how it's trying to dilute this. And before I take you there, you'll also realize that I've put for you something of Romans and the Roman Dutch law and why one side of Rome used the law heavily and the other side of Rome did not use the law heavily. And if you study this further, you'll see that the side that used the law heavily, they got the law written down, and their ruler was a wise guy called Justinian. He kept Roman law alive in the Eastern Roman Empire through the collection of the law and writing it down. Actually, writing it down is therefore known as coding it. That's some 12th century after Christ. That was a long time ago. The Codex was the first one of the books he wrote. I didn't put them in a particular order, but the Codex was one of the books he wrote. Is the compilation of the laws of Caesar. Caesar is one of the rulers in Rome. That's why you today, if you don't know anything about the law of Caesar, this is the law of Caesar, you know. Write in the chat box if you know anything that has got to do with the law of Caesar and tax. What does it say? What does it say? Come on, and property. If you're in KZN, you have this in your saying. You say, "Okwa Kesare kubuyele to who?" Kesare. What does it mean in English? It means give to who? What belongs to who? Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. It's a legal principle that you know so well, but it's an old legal principle, eh? And you still do it now. You still pay tax. You don't pay tax. Two things are shown in life: tax and death. Pay tax. If you take somebody else's thing, you borrow somebody else's thing, please take it back. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, right? It's one of those simple codex. The Institute is a textbook for law students. Well, you realize when we discuss sources of law that one of the sources of law is actually textbooks. It's called a secondary source of law. Digester, a codification of the work of writers from classic periods. You also, if you study law and you enrolled for LLB, you can see I'm influencing you to go to school and study LLB. If you can't study LLB, go register for the certificate in law at university. That certificate in law will lead you straight into LLB at some point. Don't register 4 modules. Don't be a hero. Go register 2 so that you get to know how the whole concept works. When you like it, then register 3. Then if it works, then register 4 if you're doing it distance learning like UNIS and all of those. Why this discussion? Because once you register LLB or any law module, they're going to take you through the studies of guys like Hugo, de Groot, and all of those guys. Those people are the scholars of law. In our university, well, I studied at UNISA, and then I ditched them and went to of next my school. And now at Tax of Next, we have a professor there called Mudiri. He's one of the jurists in law. And if you check him out, you will see that he's been appointed what. Check it out. It's one of the biggest guys in law. And you get different professors who do different things, and they write different books. Oh, I was taught by a professor, Papadopoulos. If you're interested in IT, information technology law, they call it what, cyber law. The author of the book in cyber law is Papadopoulos. Very nice experience where you see the, say, the first edition of the book, but you're in class and your professor says, here is the new edition of the book I'm writing and it's not published yet. Read it. Now you feel important. They feel like, yes, I've arrived in life. I'm being taught by the real author of the book, and while the book is still in the oven. This is cool. So some of us who are academics like those kind of stories. But education is important. If you can, please go to school, learn one module or two a year or a semester. It will help you a whole lot in life, and you'll meet all these people that I'm talking about. Why am I telling you about Popodipolos? The Institute. And there's Digester, the classic books like Hugo de Groot. There's the Novella Constitute Postcode. These is a collection of law books in an appendix. It's like a reference book that tells you where to find this, where to find this. It's like an encyclopedia of things. Am I interested in you learning and knowing all these things overnight? No, my friend. I just want you to know that these things exist. And when I ask you in a test or in a exam or in assessment, you would at least tell me that there was a guy called Justinian, and Justinian was the smart Roman guy. He made sure that the law is coded, and that's why today we've got Roman Dutch law, and that's thanks to Justinian. And I told the stories of the professors who taught me, and Professor Modiri and Tax of Nux, so that it will always stick in your brain. If you forget, you will always think, okay, yeah, sure, tax, there should be books there. And therefore, one of the earlier sources of law were like the institute, like, universities are the institutes of learning. Yes, something like that. Colonialism. Colonialism comes from a concept where, and we are finishing this discussion in the next 5 minutes, if you indulge us. Colonialism is a system where one country controlled another country, and the country takes over and influences what happens in another country. I've put for you the background there, the links of our law to Jan van Riebeck, Loss of the Cape. You do know that when Jan van Riebeck arrived at the Cape, they used a ship, right? One of them was Reiger, another one, Dormedaris, another one, Wouderhoop. And if you live in Cape Town, you have seen there's a dance that happens towards a certain. Hey, who lives in Cape Town? Thumbs up. Help us. Nobody. Or who's been around Cape Town? There's a dance that happens there, and people, they get dressed up, and it's a whole cultural dance and moves. And you also see the Cape Malay culture and all those beautiful dances that happen there. It helps you to see that, remind you the time of colonialism, that the Cape was colonized, and that is how the olden Cape people used to live. And you've got a district in Cape Town called District 6. Next time you visit Cape Town during holidays or something like that, please go to District 6. Just make sure that you take a tour guide. This is still South Africa after all. And indigenous law, I'll explain the concept of indigenous law for you. You're going to do me a favor and you read about Jan van Riebeck and how he came at the Cape. In indigenous law, I'm going to go just through it on Tuesday. you're going to read and understand. Law of the Cape, the black and tie, you're going to read and ask people and check what is really the black and tie, how do they really work? And you're going to look at English law. How did English law affect us, the state and the law? That you will not read that far. You will leave it at those concepts above. Leave today with an idea of the Cape. Go on YouTube as well if you can. Check those Cape parades of the Malay people and the other Cape Town people and see how the communities involved and how it becomes a very big spectacle in Cape Town. But when you look at it and you see that thing happen, remember it has got everything to do with colonialism and how people lived when South Africa was still colonized and Cape was still the Cape colony, and how that today even is still celebrated. And it will help you understand why our law behaves a certain way when we discuss certain things. And I'm going to then later discuss with you and we explain what we mean by the evolution of that law until the South African Constitution and until 1910 when South African voted and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, that was an hour. Thank you very much for coming. Hope you enjoyed. Go through, check those things. Come to me and tell me on Tuesday that you've seen the Cape Malay and the dance, and it was nice, these umbrellas and everything. Anybody in the chat box who wants to say something, if we've missed something or you want to understand something, or you want to unmute yourself and say something, I'm ready to help. Talk to me. We'll do this in the next 3 minutes and then we'll be gone. If you're happy, there's no questions, thumbs up, and then we can leave and say we've done our work. Great, my friends. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. See you on Tuesday. Goodbye.